Welcome into the Dad Verb podcast. Topics around parenting from the lens of a dad.
Welcome back, guys. This episode, we're going to be talking about STEM learning, STEAM learning, something that's been growing more and more over the last few years and really being focused on at an earlier age, toddlerhood, infancy, these STEM learning kits coming up. And we're gonna dive into that. Like, what exactly is it? Is it actually something that we should be focusing on? But before we do that, guys, pre-show, we're talking about if you haven't noticed, our co-hosts have deep, bassy ass voices. I don't. I have a nasty voice. I don't know why we're doing a podcast with me at the helm, but like Ben and Saunders, can you just give me the intro to the welcome to the Dad Verb podcast? That's as low as I can go. You give it to me. Do that.
Welcome to the Dad Verb podcast.
See, oh my gosh, Ben. Wait, Ben. Let me.
So sultry.
Give it to
Ben,
me.
are you, give us a deep one, Ben.
To the Dad Verb podcast.
See, full disclosure, guys, we had artificial intelligence doing the voiceover work for the intro that you guys hear every week. I should have just had these guys do it. I should have just had them do it. Anyway, welcome in. Excited to have you back in. How are you guys doing? You guys having a good week?
Everybody's sick in my house.
Oh no!
Oh, nice.
We don't do our sick checks anymore, but that sucks. I'm sorry,
I'm the
man.
only one that's surviving right now that's not sick. We just got back from a week in Disney World where I'm pretty sure my son is Typhoid Mary because he touched everything while we were there. Every wall, every surface, every handrail. And now everybody's sick. Not too bad. No fevers or anything.
I'm sorry about that, Ben. Is there anything I can do for you?
Wait, Saunders,
you brought it up. It's going to keep going throughout the episode. It's going to be
as much as I can hear, like you have a good bassiness. I can also hear the nose breathing as well, pretty hard. Yeah, pull it away just a little bit. There you go. There you go. Just for the sake of the listener,
we'll take it down.
There you go. Just a little bit. There you go. All right, guys, we are going to be talking about STEM learning. Okay, STEAM. If you don't know what that is. It started off like STEM, right? STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and then a little bit later, the letter A was included for STEAM, and that just now it kind of includes the arts. As a quick, like, well, go ahead.
Let's just shove art in there because we can't just skip art anymore.
No. Right, mucho and portanto.
Right.
So it's no, I actually know
Oops,
Spanish.
we forgot one. Let's just steam. Yeah, that makes sense. We didn't solve that in the 1800s with engines or anything.
Well, just as a quick kind of like overview, it's hands-on approach to learning, really designed for encouraging more critical thinking, problem solving, innovation, right? Science, technology, engineering, math, designed to prep kids for a future workplace that's quickly evolving, right? We're seeing massive innovation in artificial intelligence. We're just now scratching the surface of it. And like in the last year or two, we've just seen it explode. Where's it going to be in the future, right? And kids in today's education system, it's I don't know that lagging behind. Our system is, it's antiquated. But this is kind of a new style learning, a new set of topics to really try to encourage adopting kind of a bright new world, a bright new future that we are quickly advancing toward. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I guess I'll just kind of launch it off with you guys, knowing kind of STEM learning. I know your littles are still little, but is this something that you're kind of like thinking about? Is this something that you're conscious of, or do you not care about it? And is this overblown? Just to sell KiwiCo boxes?
The answer is number 2, but
we're gonna have that link down below in the show notes, and the episode is now over. So go by. No,
let's be clear. No, I think. Look, if you went to a high school like I did, right? They were on it. I mean, we took advanced math class. I had calculus in high school, right? You could take AP level physics and higher education science classes. We had a mechanical engineering style course, right? You could take sciences all the way. I mean, we had a chemistry lab. So like some schools were on it early 2000s, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Easy. Other schools who weren't funded as well were just doing the minimum to get by, right? And I think what you're noticing now is the transition to the minimum to get by only generates auto factory workers, which we don't need anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so we're course correcting, but I don't think like the world's missing out on it, right? Like we're not short of guys who can figure out geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're there, they're doing their jobs. We got plenty of engineers and electricians and lumber guys who are cutting like I can't cut 360-degree angles on a miter saw to save my life, right? But I know guys who can do it, and I've had all the math to know I should be able to do this, but they never come out to 180 degrees. Right. And so sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I think my gripe with it, because, and that's the thing, like there's so many different types of schools. There are like high schools that are science and like math oriented. Like there was a school called Thomas Jefferson High for like, it was like in Virginia, where I went to high school, and it's still like one of the top high schools for specifically that. But I think one gripe that I have though is a lot of the time, and I think it's still prevalent to this day, is I feel like schools, despite having the opportunity there, I still think that it kind of prioritizes just memorization rather than actual like building on critical thinking and problem solving. And too many times, like I just be reading the books, just trying to retain information on like this happened on this date, and then this happened on this day, and then this process has to go this way. Not so much, this happened because of that, and as a result, this happened, right? So it's less about like the cause and effect of things and the story behind how this happened and how it can impact us today. It was more like, when did this happen? All right, you don't get it, you fail, or why? How did you get to this state in the problem solve? Do this equation. I would just like try to memorize the exact way I did it, and then if it didn't work out on a test, I felt like screwed. I didn't actually like fully understand the concept. And me being a pretty ADD kind of a kid, and a much more creatively minded, I felt like school didn't always align with me, and it favored test takers more than people who liked, I don't know, just thought a little bit differently.
It favors tangible results, right? The tangible result is I can mark this down on paper, and that decides how much money I get for my school, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Quantitative results.
As the state and states and federal governments, they have to figure out how to fund schools. Where does the money need to go? And the only way to do that was through standardized testing. At least they thought that was the best way to do it. And going back to what Saunders was saying, this idea that you can learn the principles of things, right? Like you can practice rote memorization and figure out the formulas and all of that, but there's a difference between understanding the concept and then the practical application of those concepts. And so when you look at STEM learning and STEAM learning, and it's starting even earlier. Like my kids are in daycare, right? They're in preschool at this point. They already had an engineering curriculum that was part of their learning process, right? They got this little box, and it has gears, and it does all kinds of stuff, and you have to put it together, figure out how the gears work. Changing the gears changes the ratio and how fast things move. So they get this little learning kit that basically allows them to build different things. That triggered a bunch of stuff. Like we just recently got my son a STEM toy. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll throw the link in the show notes. But essentially, it's a circuit board, more or less. And so you're powering like a speaker or a light. Yeah, it all clicks together, and you're powering like a light or a speaker. But you can build different circuits, and if you don't build the circuit correctly, it doesn't work. And so what they're learning to understand, and this is the interesting part about it, is the practical application of these concepts, right? They understand electricity exists. But now when I sit them down in front of it and I build out a circuit, I can explain, here's your battery. Your electrons are moving from here to here to here,
Right.
and they have to be connected. And then you can see we have a gap here, which is why this speaker isn't working.
Yeah.
And so look, when we close the gap, now there's electrons flowing through here. There's power to it. It's now going to work.
Right.
And kids pick up on that so quickly.
Right.
But we sort of, I think through both the need for educating more kids at scale and the move away from, again, for lack of a better way of looking at it, kind of blue collar application of these concepts, more towards like knowledge worker jobs, we've lost that. You know, I mean, you had kids like growing up, like we had it was like vocational school. We called it BOCES. It was basically you could go be like a heavy equipment operator. You could get all kinds of like certifications for heavy equipment, diesel mechanics, all of this. And you look at that now and it's like, how much of that is so important today that's not being replaced by, by AI or by automation or anything like that, because these guys have the skill set to do those things and they have the hands-on practical knowledge to fix some of these things, to do some of these things that you and I might understand the concept, but I can't just sit down in front. I might understand how a diesel engine works. I can't sit down and fix one, but there are a lot of guys that can now.
Yeah.
And so I think we've kind of started to come full circle to say, like, yeah, we had all the knowledge and we have the people that can design the thing, but you don't necessarily have the people or skill sets to continue to fix and maintain all of those things or build them as needed.
Yeah. And to that point, I do like there is a much more hands-on approach to all this stuff. You know, you're talking about like, if there's a circuit and all that, you're not just reading it in a book, right? And that's always my problem. Like, you're trying to understand these concepts and these principles through a textbook, but then when it comes down to it, like actually like applying whatever you've learned, like I never felt like I had that right opportunity to do that. And that's why I do enjoy these kits and these opportunities in schools that have more of a focus on that. And I'm really happy that Henry in his school, he has a STEM like special. They have like these specials where it's like music and PE, but one of them is STEM. And they're building things. It's almost like based like statics and dynamics of just like early principles of civil engineering, like the things that they're building. It's like it's really cool that they have that opportunity. And I also like the life skill aspect of it, which I feel like is kind of lost. Like, sidestepping a little bit more of the STEM, but like, did you guys have home ec back in the day? Like the basics,
Yes.
like, cooking, sewing, all that stuff?
Yeah, they were, what are they, electives?
Yeah.
Mine wasn't. Mine was
Ours-
required.
We
Had to make a pizza, sew a bag. What else did I cross stitch?
I don't know that schools are doing that as much, and I think that really makes me sad. Those are very important lives. Like I would be willing to guess that like a majority of Gen Z, anyone who's in high school right now, if you ask them to sew a button, I'd say a majority of them can't. And that's building things, doing tangible things with your hands. Right? I think we're losing this aspect of being able to fend for yourself a bit.
Right. But did you learn how to write in cursive?
I did, and it was pointless. I also learned parallelogram instead of doing my taxes, and that was also pointless too. I think there's some basic skills that need to be.
So there's things that we've intentionally left out. And I think the part about this conversation that's being missed is all the things you're talking about are things that I was taught outside of school,
right,
by my uncles, by my grandfather, right? I had growing up, like, how did I learn about gear ratios? Well, because when we were looking at the side of a tractor and it was, I don't know, go get me one about yay big, right? And then we'd run off and get a flywheel that was so big and a belt that was the right size, and if that didn't work, we get a bigger one or a small one.
Yeah, but that's also a unique experience. Like I had a similar experience. I think it still was then, because I will say, I will say I grew up in a very rural area, so I had to learn how to fix things because it was the only way we got stuff done. Right, my grandfather was a logger. All my family were truck drivers, construction workers. we didn't have a lot of money, which means we had to fix stuff because that was the only option. You get the parts to do it yourself because you're not going to pay someone else to do it. I also have friends that I then went to college with, same age, drastically different life experience, where they did not have the opportunity to do things like that because they were not raised in a more rural, sort of self-reliant area, right? Things were easier to access. Now, they learned a lot of different stuff that I didn't, like how to navigate a bus system in a city. Like, I never had to do that. I always had a car and just went places. That was a skill I had to learn when I went to college. And so I think where we're losing focus a little bit is not that those skills are not taught to people. I don't think they're taught at the rate they need to be.
Should they
for
be taught
people
in
to be
schools?
self-sufficient? Well, and that's the thing is, like, if you're in a place where that is not available to you, should
Right.
you be exposed to it?
Right. That's the, I mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's like, to what extent should school have an influence on some of these, essential skills? Should they be taught in schools, or should that be reliant upon personal experience? And like one regret that it's not a regret, it's just I wasn't exposed to as much, was like woodworking. Like, I really enjoy like like building stuff with your hands,
Yeah.
with drills and making stuff with wood, like a chair or something, built-ins. I enjoy that. I that's cool, but that's not something that I was exposed to, though I wanted it. And it's because my dad just wasn't
Your
a
high
handy
school
guy.
didn't have wood shop?
No. I
Yeah,
they actually did. They had wood shop, and they had auto tech, which was like
Auto
a
mechanic.
garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those were electives, but I didn't do that because I was weird. I did JROTC. I was I learned
Well,
how to
right.
spin
So-
rifles
Career
instead.
military.
Right.
But-
So the question is what you're articulating is you wish they would have been required courses.
In a way, yes, and that's just me. But I feel like these are skills that would translate really well to the world, and because they provide good value. But then they're also they're trades, they're skills where if you get into a bind, a financial thing, you lose your business job, it's a trade that you can still monetize, that and I think that
Right.
a lot of people don't know trades anymore. Sorry, this totally veered away from STEM
No.
learning and just became about life skills, but let's just run with it, because I think it's still an important conversation to have, and
I
our
think
impact on
that's
kids. How are we gonna
Actually, the
parent?
conversation that STEM is about. The STEM conversation is not about teaching kids science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, right? It's about teaching them the fundamental life skills necessary now
For an
that,
evolving
unfortunately, a mass majority of parents have given up teaching their kids, right? And
or were not taught themselves,
or were not taught themselves, so they don't
Right.
have that skill set, right? Like,
Right.
I totally
Right.
get if you and your mom and your mom's mom were all raised in Brooklyn for 3 generations, you're not going to
Right.
understand milking cows, growing plants, furrowing a field, right? Like, I get it. You can watch all the
Mhm.
books and things, but on the other side of the coin, right? If you have the proper fundamental basis, you can go learn those skills quickly as an adult, right? It took it took me and a buddy a weekend to learn how to frame a wall, right? Properly. 16-inch studs, make sure we get the right kind of board. Like, we watched the YouTube videos, we went, okay, we have all the right materials and all the right equipment. Can we do this successfully? And the first one took way longer than it should have. The second one was done in no time because we had learned all the mistakes we made, right? And I think that's the difference. If you instill in children the logical reasoning abilities at a young enough age, and you give them the fundamentals of reading, math, and communication,
Right.
The rest can come after they hit the age of logic and reason.
And I think,
Right.
and so when it comes down to it, whether that's in the classroom or, these subscription kits like Crunch Labs or KiwiCo or whatever,
Mhm.
I think it's more than just like putting together a bunch of things and a circuit to make a little piece of thing light up. And they learned about light refraction, which is actually the thing that Henry just learned about from his Kiwi box. It's more than that, right? There are skills that Saunders just outlined that are deeper, that seeds are being planted in that regard, that I think that's the core of why it's important to adopt things like STEAM, or other different types of skills
Right.
at an earlier age, because at the moment, I don't know that the American education system is, and I don't know that we should be expecting this, but like it's not preparing kids for the world that we are quickly advancing toward. I don't think that it's doing a good enough
Right.
job at that. But I don't know that it is the school's responsibility. Maybe it is supposed to get them just far enough, and we as parents need to step up and fill in those gaps however we need to.
Well, I think this push is very much articulating that maybe Gen X or the early millennials, right, were too relaxed on teaching those core fundamental life skills, and they parlayed way too much of that off on the school will get me the education I need. Because, right, and this is the whole meme thing. Gen X was latchkey kids. They were kicked out of the door at dawn, and they didn't come back in until, and they had hoses, right? And so they learned some of those fundamental problem solving skills literally growing up outside.
Yeah.
Because you had to solve those problems.
Right.
Whereas the next generation of helicopter parents didn't necessarily let their kids learn those things on the street. And so now the response is, well, if we're not going to teach them those on the street, proverbial street, you have to teach them those skills in the classroom, right? And what we don't know in any real sense is whether or not teaching those skills in the classroom results in effective adults.
Yeah.
We think it does. We think that'll be corollary, but we got 10, 15 years to figure it out, right? And what if the problem is, great, we taught them how to punch out algebra, but we didn't how to teach them how to use a basic computer interface. Now they're SOL, right? Like,
well, so I would actually take it one step back too. I think life skills obviously important, right? Like we've had a lot of discussions about life skills and the sort of generational difference between millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and kind of what that looks like, even just from social interaction. The other thing that I think we're missing, though, is that STEM learning in general is about exposure and curiosity. It exposes kids to things that they may not otherwise see, right? There's required learning, no matter what state you live in, there's going to be required learning, required tests, or standardized learning. There's a curriculum that needs to be followed. What they don't get to do a lot of is this sort of unstructured look at how the world works. And sort of that's where some of this STEM learning, I think, really comes in. I get to get my hands on it. I get to start thinking about how something works, how it functions. And I get to go, well, if I do this, then what happens? If I do this, what happens? If I do this, what happens? Yeah. It's this what if or and then type statements that get their mind rolling to say, I think I want to learn more about this. And then they can go home to hopefully an engaged parent or family that then says, oh, you're really interested in doing, like, the reason we got him the circuit toys because we went to a science museum and they had them there and he loved it. We spent 40 minutes building different circuits. We're like, okay, this is a great Christmas gift for him. And now we can sit down and do this for hours on end, just build different circuits. And he's like, well, what if I do this? And what if I do this? Again, I think getting to Saunders' point, it gives him the opportunity to see a problem and solve a problem, and then be curious about the cause, effect, outcome sort of scenario, and do those experiments on his own in a way where, he's not going to blow something up. Like he gets a little more, he's able to be curious in a way that's not, dangerous.
Yeah. I was literally wanting
he'll
to
be okay.
I was literally trying to, I was going to, like, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. It's experimenting and that cause and effect, and understanding that versus just rote recall of something that you read in a book or something that was taught to you on a blackboard. Right. So, or on a whiteboard. So, I think it's really interesting, this topic, where it can lead. Again, it's world changing. There's a class actually locally, where there was, the curriculum was really interesting. It was actually teaching the kids to develop an app or an online business on their own. Whether or not it succeeded or failed didn't matter, but that was the class. And then I think they took it one step further because, cool, you built the thing, but guess what? No one's going to learn about it unless you market it. Also, when you start getting money, right, there's this dirty side of the business called bookkeeping and taxes. How does that look for you, right? So these are real world things that like a lot of people, a lot of adults have to learn by trial and, just trial and error, trial by fire, or just pure, YouTube University.
We all hate them. It's fine.
So, but like, getting our youth
you don't know
exposed
until
to
the
that.
IRS shows up at your door and go,
Yeah,
I was
right,
supposed
right.
to file taxes. Oh no.
Because I think that the best that I had, at least growing up, was just literally it was a finance class where they had us play like Monopoly over the course of like a week or something like that, and that was like, but I get that the basic principles were there, but like real world application is truly how I think our youth is going to learn, whether that's in school or whether that's how we push the envelope as parents. It's important. It's important. But leave it up to you guys, the listeners. If you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you think on this topic. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Been seeing a couple comments come in, seeing also viewership come in a little bit higher steadily on the YouTube. So that's kind of nice. Glad to hear that. Glad to see that everything is trending upwards for the podcast. As a final sign off, again, please let us know your thoughts on this topic. It can get pretty deep. I feel like we can do even a follow-up episode on this one. But the sponsors that we have for the Dad Verb podcast, it's huckberry.com. If you're a dad looking to stay on top of hot trends instead of shopping at Costco, no dogs on Costco. Costco's what's up, but we are sponsored by huckberry.com. Check it out. That link is going to be down there for you. Awesome style. I got a couple of reels popping up on the Instagram. Ben sharing a couple of things that he snagged from Huckberry as well. Go check that out. Thank you to Huckberry for sponsoring the Dad Verb podcast. STEM learning, guys. KiwiCo is we've mentioned it slightly. We'll have that linked in the show notes as well as in the description of the YouTube video as well, in case it's something that you're interested in. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.